So if you're trying to generate consistent leads through LinkedIn at the moment, but perhaps you don't have a bit of a system or you just feel like you don't have the time and energy for it, then in this video, I'm going to be sharing exactly my quick routine that I use, which probably takes about 30 minutes a day to get more predictable and consistent leads coming through. So, firstly, I want to talk about the problem about generating consistent leads because a lot of the time people give off this idea that if you want to generate consistent leads, you need to spend tons and tons of time, and you also need to have a lot of energy as well. I'm not sure what that is. I think it's the lightning bolt, but let's ignore that. So you need to have tons of time and energy, right? And this, can be true for certain things. However, a lot of the time, especially with LinkedIn, it doesn't have to be that case. And what I wanted to just be able to show you is just this quick routine that I use that's centered around warm outreach. So let's get into it. So the first thing, like I said before, right, this is focused on outreach, but more specifically warm outreach. Now, a lot of the times, you might be thinking, oh, well, if it's outreach, then surely it must contain sort of sending, 100 plus messages a day or a week or however many, and it being, super cold and perhaps it being pictures. And you've probably got these before and they're not particularly very nice, right? And good news is this approach is not including that either. So you won't have to worry about that. And what my aim with my approach is I'm trying to keep things as familiar and just as humanized as possible. So here's what I look to do. The first thing I'm going to do with this approach is I'm going to look to find my idle clients and then connect with them. Right. So I'm going to find and then connect with my idle clients. Now, when I'm doing this, usually I'm going to aim to basically use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. The reason why I use this and the reason why I believe you should have this as well, if you don't already, is that LinkedIn Sales Nav allows you to create a very specific list of your idle client. And what I mean by this is you can filter for how active they are on LinkedIn. You can filter for their role, how long in terms of years they've been in their business, and even just like lots of other things, perhaps even in terms of sort of location as well. Now, I understand some of these you can filter for just on the more perhaps regular version or even premium of LinkedIn. However, some of these more sort of like specific things in terms of years active and roles and stuff is more so for Sales Navigator, and you're going to be able to create a lot more specific lists and find those individuals. So this is exactly why I always recommend you to get LinkedIn Sales Navigator first, because that's pretty much the reason why. So once you've created this list, right, you can save this list, and once that's done, you can then use this list, on a regular basis. And what I like to do with this list from here, once I've actually say filtered for the stuff that's relevant, I'm then going to look to send about 20 connection requests a day. Now, once you've made this list, if you're sending 20 connection requests every day, this might take you 4 to 5 minutes, right? Maybe even less. Because all you're doing is taking the list that you've made and you're just sending connection requests. We're not sending any notes here, it's just the connection requests. Now, first of all, what did this do, right? Before I just move on, what does this do alone, right? If you just do this, well, what this does is that this gets you in front of 20 of your idle clients. 20 potential idle clients, right? They don't even have to accept that connection request, but chances are, if they're somewhat active on LinkedIn, they're going to see your request pop up. And if they're perhaps a bit curious or interested, or they just want to see a bit more about who you really are, which is what a lot of people tend to do, is they're then going to sort of look at your profile, right? They're going to then look at your profile. They're going to perhaps maybe check you out, see a bit more about what you do, maybe look at your recent content. So already, you know, like you're already getting in front of idle clients, right? So this alone, right? Honestly speaking, this alone is probably going to really help regardless, right? Because you'll get people that will just see you, and so obviously some people will accept, and others, perhaps won't. But that's really the benefit of doing that in the first place, because then you know for sure that every single day you're getting in front of idle clients, which is really key. So really from there, we then want to start the conversation, right? And so for this, I want to obviously start the conversation with people familiar to me. So this is exactly why we set the 20 connection requests over here. So what I'll be doing is I'll be taking the new connections which we've got, which will be our main sort of source of warm leads, and I'll also look for my profile viewers, as well as things such as engagers as well, right? And that's engaged on content. Now, what you'll probably find is that these two, there might not be so many. There might be a few. Obviously, when I'm looking at these, I'm looking for, to see if they look like my ideal client. If they don't, obviously, don't worry about it. But what you're going to find with this approach, at least, is the majority speaking is probably going to come from your new connections. But you want to take them all anyway. When you take all of them, then we want to send the first message. Now, on average, I tend to find that on a regular or at least on a day to day basis, I have between sometimes 5 up to about 10 new accepted connections to then message every day. Now, this is going to vary because, for example, if I send connections, say on a Friday or a Saturday, a lot of people aren't going to be active on a Saturday or Sunday. So when it comes to the Monday, I sometimes get, a lot more, but it's going to vary. But you should tend to find you're getting maybe around 5 to 10 a day. So once you've then got these warm leads, then we'll send that first message. Now, with this first message, what I usually look to do is create a bit of a template to some degree, but we're making sure this is personalized. So let me show you what I do. So first thing I want to do is I want to personalize the message. So what I'll do here is that the first sort of line of the message will usually be, something around like, hey name, saw your post on, and then whatever, because I usually like to personalize it and look at the recent post, and just basically say what I like about it. Now, why bother with personalizing it? The reason why I do it is because it shows that I put in effort, right? And with lots of AI stuff going around and lots of cold pictures, effort is very valuable, a lot more valuable than people think. And, through experience of me doing it, I've often had some people that will actually say that they quite appreciate that I've taken the time to go and do that. But what it does is that because it shows effort, people are more likely to respond naturally. Not saying it's foolproof, but they're more likely to. And to me, I just quite like being able to show them that I've taken the time to do that as well. So personalizing it is one thing. The next thing is that obviously that's our first line. Our sort of second line, if you will, after that is then going to be a qualifying question. And the goal here is to ask a very specific question to see if they have a problem that you can solve. Why do we want to do this? Well, the exact reason why we want to do this is because the moment we send that first message, this prospect right here, they know pretty much exactly why we're there, right? And so there's no point building any sort of fake rapport or anything to warm them up to the question. Just get to the point. And when I say get to the point, I don't mean pitch, right? This isn't a pitch here. This is asking a qualifying question. So, for example, to give you a bit more clarity, for me, I might, ask. So, for example, the first line there is obviously the personalization bit. And then the second line here, um, I might ask, say, how's the LinkedIn lead generation going? Is it going well? Or something around how the LinkedIn lead generation is going of sorts. And you'll notice that, well, first of all, that's not a pitch, right? I'm asking a question, but it's also somewhat, specific as well, right? It's not like a very broad question about how their business is going, right? Because anyone can give you a range of answers, but it's fairly specific. And so what this does is that it allows the individual to, basically understand exactly why I'm there, and basically just almost me asking permission and saying, "Hey, do you actually have a problem that I can solve?" And from here, which leads on to the third stage, is you'll get three kinds of responses, right? You'll get three kinds of responses from this, and I'll just jot those out there. So the first kind of response you can get is being ghosted. Now, this is totally natural, happens to everyone, even with warm outreach. If you get ghosted, there's two reasons for this. It's either they either don't have a problem you can solve or don't believe you can help them with that problem, or sometimes people are just genuinely busy, right? That's just that. So what I look to do here is I'll look to follow them up. This might be between 2 to 3 times, and it's nothing crazy, but it's simply just trying to bump it up for them. Sometimes I might ask perhaps a more open question around, say, for example, LinkedIn lead generation, but you want to follow them up because surprisingly enough, you're not the most important person for the individual. And I have found that follow-ups are actually really worth it because some people I do follow up, a good 2, 3 times, and then they do actually get back to me and they're quite receptive. So that's really important. The second thing is that people can come back and basically say that they do not have a problem. So, for example, if I ask someone how the LinkedIn lead generation is, they might say it's all good, right? It's all good, not a problem, or such. Now, there's two things I can do here. I can either accept that and say that's cool, or if I feel like perhaps they dodged the question, or maybe they said, "Oh yeah, lead generation's okay," and I'm like, well, I'm not quite sure. I might then ask a further question, right? A further question just to confirm. So maybe I might ask, say, oh, well, are you like, does this mean you're booking a certain number of calls, every week, or like where do your leads typically come from? Do they typically come from inbound, or are they mixed in with outreach? Because what it does is it just makes me double check and see, do they really have that problem? Because if they give me a response that's like, nope, things are completely fine, cool, not a problem. But if they give me a response which perhaps indicates that there might be a problem, then that's sort of, really quite important as well. Because some people will just say, hey, it's not a problem, just because perhaps they don't really want to have that conversation, or just because they want to sort of push it away a little bit. So you do need to be aware of that. And then obviously the ideal response here is that they do have a problem, right? So in my case, someone might respond saying, lead generation isn't that good, or, I don't really generate many leads from LinkedIn, or so on and so forth. All you want to do from here, the moment someone opens up about a problem to you, no matter how small or big it may be, you want to propose a call. And I talk about this a lot. Whatever other questions you might have for them, chances are you're probably going to ask them it on the call anyway, or on a sales call anyway. So you want to get it straight to the point, because if they are in a position where they are open enough to talk to you about this problem that they have, they're probably going to be open enough to talk to you on a sales call about the problem as well. And then perhaps be open enough to see if or how you could help them. So that's the way you want to position. Now, when you position the call, just as a final thing here, you really want to make sure that this call is clearly stated that it's to see if or how you can help them. This call is not any sort of, coffee chat or anything rubbish like that. Make it super clear that the call is to see if or how you can help them. This way, you're not getting tire kickers. Trust me, I've made this mistake in the past, and I've dealt with so many tire kickers, and it's really frustrating. So overall, this is effectively what I believe to be what might as well be a 30-minute sort of daily or regular LinkedIn process to generate more consistent leads. Because all we're doing here, right? Once you've got things set up, once you've managed to find perhaps what suits you best, you're sending 20 connection requests from a list you've already made. That might take you 4 or 5 minutes. Then from there, you're obviously going to, send the first message to these sort of more warm leads. Now, you probably, at least the question, you'll probably have relatively the same, but the personalization might take you a few minutes to do as well. So per message you're sending, probably only going to take a few minutes per person. And like I said before, you're probably not going to have a crazy amount of people to message either, right? Perhaps it might be like, 5 to 10 or something. Then from there, then you're just simply being able to just see what response they give back, right? If they ghost you, obviously you can follow them up. If they effectively say they don't have a problem, you can either tick them off or you can ask a further qualifying question. But if they do have a problem, you then propose a call. And by doing this method, it gives you a lot more control over your lead generation, and it allows you to only deal with the people more familiar to you, right? I'm not saying these people are, say, as warm and hot as referrals or whatever. What I'm saying is that you're able to perhaps just chat with people that have somewhat seen you to some degree. They perhaps somewhat seen your content. You're not just coming out of the blue. So follow this process, give it a go. At the very, very least, I recommend start sending connection requests. If you if you don't want to do all of this, just start sending connection requests with a very specific list. And over time, you'll naturally start generating more leads and have more ideal clients to then speak to. So hopefully you found this video useful. If you have, then do let me know. And if you're interested in being able to get help with generating leads from LinkedIn, you can see my website below this link, and you can see how I can help you with this. Cheers.